This is going to have to do. All right. So the last 2 years haven't exactly felt the most beautiful, but we all want to build beautiful applications. So let's dive into some new changes in Angular material that make that possible. Hi everyone, my name is Emma Twersky, and I'm a developer relations engineer on the Angular team at Google. The document's tagline for Angular material is accessible and versatile components. In the most recent releases, Angular material has undergone a sweeping review of accessibility and more intuitive theming, and that tagline's more accurate than ever. Let's spend the next 10 to 15 minutes taking a deeper look at what exactly has changed, how to take advantage of those latest changes, and best practices for theming, as well as where things are headed next. Since 2020, the Angular component repository has merged over 40 PRs tagged with accessibility, or A11Y. So what's in those PRs? This began with a comprehensive review of our components for web accessibility standards, which were then implemented and launched as a part of version 13. There are too many improvements to show, but let's take a look at 2 enhancements I'm specifically excited about that significantly improve the accessibility of Angular material. Previously, autofocus in your dialogues, side navigation, and bottom sheets was a Boolean value that allowed users to specify whether the container element or first tabbable element is focused on open. That's a great start, but there are many instances where we want to focus on something else, like a dialog header or a different element. Plus, the Boolean thing is a little bit confusing since we were always going to autofocus on an element. We just wanted an option to specify which one. Now, we have an expanded set of accepted values so that you can always specify using a CSS selector to focus on the first element that matches that, or choose something like the first header element. If none of those elements can be focused, then the container element is focused by default. Another improvement is a set of updates to the visual contrast, including special attention to the component's appearance in high contrast mode. High contrast mode on Windows is an accessibility feature designed to increase text legibility and improve readability. The feature works by enabling the user to select theme colors for a scoped number of semantic elements. While it's not explicitly a part of WCAG requirements or any sort of web accessibility must-haves for the web, it represents our team's commitment towards making components as accessible as possible. For more improvements and to see a comprehensive rundown of all of the changes, you can check out a blog post I wrote on the Angular blog. If you're interested in learning more about accessibility and components, you can also check out the newly revised documentation on each of the components page, including an accessibility section that calls out these changes and how to implement them per component. You can also take the Accessibility in Angular Code Lab on Google Code Labs. The migration to integrating MDC Web is currently in progress on the Angular roadmap and incorporates reusable primitives for building material design components to align more closely with the material design specifications. This upgrade to newer specs includes a range of built-in accessibility improvements without us having to change anything specific to the Angular library codebase. The MDC migration includes specs with things like higher contrast ratios for colors, better contrast on things like disabled options, and larger touch targets on things like checkboxes and buttons. In Q4, the team is continuing to prioritize accessibility work with some of the trickier components, like Date Picker, which I can definitely say is a bit of a picky component. Now that we've talked about accessibility, let's look at versatility. We want to make sure that developers like yourselves can use components to fit your unique business needs by providing a flexible foundation, whether that means creating CDK primitives or fully functional components. One area of flexibility I'm excited about is how we style our components. Version 12 introduced the option to use inline Sass in your Angular components. The CLI now has an option to provide an inline style language and compile Sass directly from your components into styling. This provides a versatile way for developers to style your components and is helpful for those of you out there using single file components or those developers who just want to add a small amount of styling within a component file. Another change to styling is the migration from @import to @use. In 2019, SAS introduced a new module system, including a migration from import to use. By switching to use syntax, we can more easily determine what CSS is unused and reduce the size of compiled CSS output. This makes it impossible to inadvertently pull in transitive dependencies, and each module is only included once, no matter how many times those styles are loaded. Angular Material version 13 included a migration from import usage to use for all imports into the Angular Material SAS styles. This refactor of our theming API surface is easier to understand and read and helps you as developers take better advantage of the new module system. This migration all takes place in scripts included in ng update, so no need to worry about how to actually make those changes, just ng update to version 12 and beyond. And let's take a look at one example of how this change impacts how we define Angular Material themes. We now make use of the introduction of namespace to define the core Angular Material import as mat, then access variables such as the indigo palette by mat.indigopalette. If you dig into the source code, we're also more intentional about what variables are forwarded for public access to guide users towards cleaner styles. Check out the newly rewritten Angular Material theming documentation to see how use and this migration simplify your components. Speaking of custom theming, you may notice that those documents have gotten a lot of attention recently as we revise all of our theming guides, but there's more coming to the space soon. You can check out my blog post, The New State of CSS in Angular, for a sneak peek at how the deprecation of IE11 support enables the Angular libraries to begin using CSS custom properties to expand customization in a future Angular release. Angular Materials migration to MDC-based components is just the beginning. I'm super excited about how aligning with the latest versions of Material 3 enables more accessible and versatile components, and I'm excited to bring you along with. As we look towards the future of Material 3, I'd love to hear from you. If your enterprise application is using customization and Angular Material, please reach out to our developer relations team as we ensure that we bring personalization and customization to the web in a way that you all can use. Thank you for spending time talking about the future of components with me, and I'll speak to you next time.
Hi, I'm Joe Weems. Thanks for checking out this video from EnterpriseNG 2021. Online conferences were great, but it's time to get back in person. See your old friends, make some new ones, and take your career to the next level. Head over to ng-conf.org to get your ticket. See you there.